Did you know that Palestinians were engaged in anti-colonial resistance to Zionist settlement before 1948? Usually, when people think of Palestinian history, they think of the Nakba of 1948 as the starting point. But in another video, we talked about the decades-long process of Zionist settlement, which occurred before the State of Israel was officially created in 1948. And if Zionist settlement began before 1948, so did Palestinian resistance. The Arab Revolt of 1936 to 1939 is a prime example of this. So what was the Arab Revolt, and why is it important to know about? By 1936, Palestinians were becoming increasingly concerned about British collaboration with other powers and with the Zionist movement to facilitate the creation of a Zionist state. This caused open rebellion from Palestinians. Palestinians participated en masse in a general strike that managed to bring commercial and economic activity to a halt. In the countryside, the revolt included strategies of civil disobedience and armed insurgents. And what is most notable about this revolt is its class character, as it was primarily driven by the peasant class. In his pioneering study on the Arab Revolt, prominent Palestinian writer and political activist Ghassan Kanafani wrote, "The brunt of the revolutionary burden in the countryside and the guerrilla action in the cities remained primarily on the shoulders of the dispossessed peasants." However, the British clamped down on the revolt in a multitude of ways. Due to the revolt's peasant character, the British tried to sow division within Palestinian society by offering special treatment to urban bourgeois Palestinians. This was in addition to Britain's heavily militarized response to the revolt, such as employing tanks, airplanes, and heavy artillery. Members of Jewish Zionist militias that Britain had trained up also formed special night squads with the British to carry out special operations against Palestinian villages. The British also adopted a policy of mass home demolitions. The aim was to defeat the dispossessed peasant revolutionaries by any means. The combined impact of Britain's efforts brought the revolt to an end in 1939. Over the revolt's 3 years, 5,000 Palestinians had been killed and nearly 15,000 wounded. The Palestinian leadership had been exiled, assassinated, or imprisoned. Going back to Kanafani's analysis of the revolt, he wrote that by the time of the Nakba in 1947, the conditions were ripe for the Zionists to harvest the fruit of the 1936 revolution's defeat. He describes the Nakba as only the epilogue to a long and bloody chapter endured from April 1936 to September 1939. This was because Britain systematically suppressed the revolt and damaged the infrastructure for Palestinian resistance. Britain functioned as a very useful iron wall, as described by the Zionist leader Ze'ev Jabotinsky. Jabotinsky wrote that Zionist colonization would only succeed under the protection of another colonial power that could provide an iron wall between the native population and the Zionist movement. Britain could, and did, as Jabotinsky put it, create in the country such conditions of administration and security that if the native population should desire to hinder our work, they will find it impossible. In Kanafani's view, at no point in the entire history of the Palestinian struggle was the armed popular revolution as close to victory as it was in those months stretching from the end of 1937 to the beginning of 1939. The ultimate defeat of the revolt came about because of this Zionist imperialist alliance, showing how, since then to today, resisting Zionism is inextricably linked to resisting imperialism.